Sup peeps, Sora here, and I'm going to do a different video today. And yes, I know my hair is a mess. I haven't done my hair, but I have a special video for today. This video is going to be my history with video games. Now, I don't know how I'm going to condense all of these years down into a less than 9-minute video, but I'll do my best. There's not going to be any editing, so no pictures pop up on screen, no annotations, anything like that. Just me talking directly to you guys about my history of games. Now, I basically grew up around games my whole life. Even before I played video games, I was around them. You see, my parents, back then, they don't really now, but back then, had games consoles. My dad had an NES. My mother had Genesis, or over here it's called Mega Drive. My first exposure to video games was through those. I used to watch my parents play video games. I used to watch my dad specifically play stuff like The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Contra, or Probotector as it's called over here, Mega Man, and other games like that. A Boy and His Blob, games like that kind of thing. Bayou Billy was a game he played a lot, and Double Dragon. So yeah, those kind of games. So those were and my mother would play things like Sonic the Hedgehog, that kind of thing. So I grew up around those games at a very, very young age when I was like basically a baby. And I remember my father having to take a phone call when I was 2 years old. He had to take a phone call, and he left The Legend of Zelda on. Now I picked up the controller, thought, yeah, he can do it, I can do it. I picked up the controller, and I pressed a button, and Link moved. And my mind was completely blown as to how I was doing this. Now, obviously, I don't count that as the first game I ever played because I literally just pressed the button once and he came back. But that was my first exposure to video games. And then eventually my father upgraded to an SNES. Even though at this point in time the SNES was a few years old. It was pretty old at this point in time. The N64 was actually out. It was coming out. So he upgraded to that. And then I'd watch him play stuff like A Link to the Past, Super Metroid, which went on to become one of my favorite games of all time, and Super Mario World, Mario Kart, that kind of thing. And then I remember Christmas when I was about, I want to say 5 years old, maybe. My parents bought me my first ever games console, which was the PlayStation 1. Now, I remember vividly that Rayman came with this console, as well as the original Crash Bandicoot. Now, I played these games, I immediately fell in love with gaming. There's a reason why I say that I credit the PlayStation 1 as the console that made me a gamer. These were my first video games I played, legitimately. And I fell in love with these games. Obviously, I did play Mega Man 2 on my dad's NES because he gave it to me when he upgraded to the SNES. That was the first game I ever beat. So I credit Mega Man 2 as the first game I ever played. Legend of Zelda is technically the first game I played, but I don't actually credit Mega Man 2 as that. The other thing about this was the PS1 was the first games console that was my own. And I had pocket money every weekend, so I would save up. A lot of the games I got were used games, because the PS1 at this point in time was pretty, like, it wasn't a brand new system. It was, like, a couple of years old. So I got that, and I got Crash Bandicoot. I remember getting Crash Bandicoot 2, and that was the first game I ever 100% completed. So that's why I have a special connection with Crash Bandicoot. I remember picking up Tomb Raider and developing my first crush on a girl, Lara Croft. But yeah, just I have so many of these memories with this. I played a lot of games I probably shouldn't have, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and things like that. A lot of these games I really had no business playing at my age. And then of course, I got ill at one point, and my dad came back with Mega Man X4, which I played to death and has become one of my favorite games of all time. And is also a game that I know all of the ordering of the weaknesses for the Robot Masters in that game, or the Mavericks as they're called in those games. And then my mother, when I was sick, got me Gex and the Gecko, which again one of my favorite games. And for Christmas one year, I got both Spyro the Dragon and Crash Bandicoot Warped. Fell in love with these games. Pretty much became some of my favorite games ever. Crash Warped went on to become my favorite game of all time at that point. And yeah, I kept playing those games. I went through a really bad patch in my life with being diagnosed with autism and things. And I discovered games like Big Ribbon. And yeah. Then eventually, not too long after that, my parents decided to get me a PlayStation 2. Now, obviously, I also had an N64, but the N64 was the family's N64. It was mainly my mother's. But it was the N64 was the family N64. I did play on it. I played stuff like Banjo-Kazooie and stuff, but I was still little time. You know, my interests were mainly with things like Crash Bandicoot and stuff, like that kind of thing. I was interested in those games. And then when the PlayStation 2 came around, we got me a PlayStation 2. And I didn't get a PlayStation 2 at launch, but I remember at Christmas I got a PlayStation 2 with Ratchet and Clank and a little game called Kingdom Hearts. And I played Kingdom Hearts, and I felt this deep connection with the main character, Sora, which is why I chose the name Sora for my YouTube persona. And I remember playing this game, falling in love with the characters and story, and thinking to myself, I love this. This is more than a game to me. And that became something that was special to me, and I resonated with them. And that has gone on to be my favorite video game series. And obviously, I also discovered other game series on PS2, like Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, a lot of like other things. I forgot to mention I discovered Final Fantasy way before this, but yeah, it's a cool thing with all this. And then I got a GameCube. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, I had a PS2 and a GameCube, and I ended up playing games like Wind Waker, Mario Sunshine, and all these kind of things, and Metroid Prime. So I had that too. And then, coming up to the PS3 time, I didn't have a PS3 originally when it came out. My first console from that generation was a Wii. And I remember Wii Sports became an addiction for me. I remember I loved Twilight Princess, Smash Bros. Brawls. I fell in love with that console and everything about it. Which is ironic, given that I don't like motion controls, but yeah. And then I got a PlayStation 3. Now, actually, I got an Xbox 360, and that was when, because I discovered Halo through a friend. And it was at this point that I had my first Xbox 360. Had it for about 2 years, and it red ringed. And at this point, the PS3, which would have been my first choice, was cheaper. And then I got that and discovered games like Uncharted, Little Big Planet, this kind of thing. Fell in love with that console as well. And, of course, I've not even delved into the handheld side of things. My first handheld console was the original Game Boy with Pokemon. I was really, really little. So, I had a Game Boy, actually, before I had a home console. But, well, not before I had a home console. I had a PlayStation, and then I also had a Game Boy. So Pokemon, the original Pokemon Blue, was one of the first games I played too. And obviously, I've had every subsequent Nintendo handheld since that point. And of course, the PS4 generation came around, and it's kind of funny because I always knew, with the advent of YouTube in around, I believe YouTube was 2006, I believe, I started watching Let's Players. When YouTube gaming videos became like a big thing, I started watching those. And I realized that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to, be known as someone who played video games. Because, believe it or not, despite my age, I have played pretty much every video game console that's ever existed. I have a big, deep love for video games. Now, so far, I've done well in condensing this down for like less than an hour and a half. I'm only at 11 minutes, and I've said quite a lot. But basically, video games helped me through a lot of bad times. When I was diagnosed with autism, video games were like my escape. When I was going through a lot of bad stuff, family-wise, video games were my escape. Video games have always been my escape. And I love that I'm now able to share that escape with people here on YouTube. And it's kind of crazy to me when I think about it, and I think of like, I'm now taking something that used to be a passion for me, and I've now turned it into pretty much something that is making other people happy. And it's kind of crazy because when I look at video games as a whole, I think to myself, like, where video games began, and like, it's just crazy to think that I started out with a PlayStation 1 as my first console, but I played games before that. And it's kind of crazy to think that this is what I do now. And I want to share a lot of my favorite games from previous years with you guys. Like a lot of PS1 games. Like, things like Tomb Raider, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. All these games really mean a lot to me. And it's funny because the only console... I mean, you'd think, even though I've always said I have a big connection with PlayStation, my gaming experiences didn't begin with PlayStation, they began with Sega and Nintendo. But the difference is that Sony were the ones that kind of like shaped my gaming years, like, properly, like, to the point where I became a gamer because of, PlayStation. And it's kind of crazy to me when I think about, like, most moments in my life pretty much revolve around gaming. Like, a lot of my childhood memories are from video games. I have more memories from video games than I do anything else. It's crazy to think that. And when I look at, like, a lot of games that I grew up with, like, I have memories of coming home from school with... being sent home from school because I sprained my ankle really badly. And, like, obviously, I didn't go to the hospital. I was too brave for that. But being sent home and my mom buying me a game, and I remember, like, sitting there and it was like... I remember, like, oh, I want this. And it ended up being Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. So it's a crazy, like, thing to think of, like, pretty much every instance of positives and negatives in my life have reverberated video games. I might get this video done in less than an hour, actually. And it's crazy to me to think so much of my life has been spent around video games in some form. Like, I probably know more about video games than I know about anything else. Like, I can tell you, like, the history of the PlayStation 1, but I can't tell you the history of my country that I live in. Like, it's crazy that I can tell you these things. But then when it comes to, like, actual important history and important facts, I'm like, I draw a blank. Because, like, I don't care about that shit. All I care about is not just video games, but video games are like the thing I care about most. So why would I bother with all these unnecessary historical facts? Like, it's just the point that I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that video games have always been like video games have always been a part of my life, even from like I basically like, and my mom has made this joke to me multiple times. I was born with a video game controller in my hand, basically, because I was brought up into a gaming family, became an even bigger gamer than both my parents combined and my sister combined. So it just, even though I'm yeah, I just kind of have become the biggest gamer in the family. And to think that I'm sitting here now in 2024 recording a YouTube video talking about my love and history with gaming is crazy. But yeah, it's just, this video is going to be pretty much me rambling about video games a lot. And it's another instance, just like when I would go to school and like I'd be talking in class, you'd always like, I would never be concentrating on I'd never be concentrating on schoolwork because I'd either be having conversations with friends about how to find the secret exits in Crash Bandicoot 2, for example, or like I'd be sat there trading Pokemon with my friends on my Game Boy, which I shouldn't have had in school, or sneakily at lunch breaks playing Birth by Sleep on my PSP. So like and this was like in secondary school and stuff, like all of these moments have like led to like me being around games all the time. And it's funny because when I went to college, yes, despite my lack of intelligence, I went to college. I went on a performing arts course, like a dance course, because I was good at dancing, and people kept telling me that was what my calling was, even though I now know it wasn't. People kept telling me, you should stick with this. I did originally plan to go to college to study game design. Now, the problem is, at the point in time that I went to college, it wasn't really known to have video game development courses provide the tools for you. So basically, you had to pay for the tools. Now, despite how many consoles I had at the time and how many games I had, we were not a rich family. So, me going to college to study how to be how to develop video games was out of the question. It just was. It was completely out of the question. There was no way that I was going to be able to go to college to learn game development. It wasn't a possibility. Even though I had all these ideas in my head and I had these dreams, I was like, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna learn to develop video games. I'm gonna develop my own game. It's gonna be a hit, possibly, and then developers are going to come calling. Like, I'm going to end up working on a Kingdom Hearts game, or I'm going to end up working on a Crash Bandicoot game, or a Tomb Raider game, or like these insane expectations, but I knew weren't really realistic. But that was just like what I wanted to do, and it's funny because I had to eventually, just give up on that dream. I still at some point would love to develop a video game. Like a lot of YouTubers have, I'd love to like reach out to develop like indie devs at some point and help like maybe work on a video game with them. But yeah, like just video games have always been a part of my life. So why don't I like make them the central focus of it? Like, and me doing this YouTube now, I started doing YouTube with my gaming videos, thinking I'm probably gonna do it for a little while, and like I'll probably only ever get like 50 subscribers or something. But I'm now currently, as the time of recording, at around 700 and something, and rising. That's crazy to me. Like, it's crazy to me that my love of video games extends out to like people. Like, I have people who watch me in countries I've never even heard of or been to, and it's crazy. It's crazy that I have that reach with people, that like I can sit and play video games a lot of the time, let's face it, badly, and yet people still like watch me and they like enjoy watching me. It's kind of crazy. And I was literally told by teachers in school that I would never get anywhere in life playing video games all the time. Now, you have to realize, when I was told this in primary school, which is what we call, which America would call elementary school, YouTube wasn't really, YouTube either wasn't a thing or was a thing, but was in its infancy. Like, it was early days. The only kind of people you had on YouTube, gaming-wise, were people like the Angry Video Game Nerd. It wasn't like people recording their gameplay with them speaking over it. That wasn't really a thing. So as far as these teachers that were telling me this were concerned, they were 100% right. I wasn't going to make anything of myself playing video games. And I kept thinking to myself, no, I will make something of myself playing games, because somewhere down the line, something is going to happen and pieces are going to fall into place. And pieces are going to fall into place that will enable me to make something of myself with video games. And then, of course, YouTube becomes a thing. And you see a lot of gamers start to play. Now, here's the thing. People are probably wondering, if I was watching people back in 2010 and 2013 and stuff, like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie and all these, why didn't I start this then? The simple fact was, I didn't have the confidence then. I was a scared, let's face it, probably kid, teenager. I was scared at that point in time. Because I thought to myself, yes, I can make something of myself playing video games, but if I try doing this on YouTube, I didn't want to do it at a really young age. I said it to myself, I wanted to be an adult and have the confidence to do it before I attempted it. Because I knew unless I had the confidence, I would have given up. Without confidence, I would have given up. Because that was the way I was. When I wasn't confident with something, I'd give up. Except when it came to playing video games, I persevered. Except for certain games like Rayman. But yeah, just I persevered with that, but then I didn't have the confidence to do it, and I thought to myself, I don't have really the means to do it. Even now, the way I record my gameplay, it's not as archaic, it's not as professional as you'd think. You know, it's literally not that professional at all, actually. I am, the end goal is to become professional at this. The end goal is to persevere with this and to become successful with this and see it through. And spread my love of gaming, but also prove that people who have autism that play video games can be seen and heard. Give them a voice and a face. You know, give them a platform. You know, represent them, basically. And I remember the first video I uploaded. Now, if you don't include me uploading the video of me getting the Platinum Trophy in Spider-Man 2, then my first video that I uploaded was my games room tour. Now, I would not recommend that you go and watch that, because the start of that video is me basically being very quiet and very timid. And then as the video goes on, I gain more confidence. And then obviously the incident with Bradley Riches being on Celebrity Big Brother helped me see that people with autism could like make something. But what really gave me the boost to do this was when I uploaded my PlayStation 5 collection video. And currently I haven't checked in a while, but last time I checked, that video was sitting at around 11 or 12,000 views. And I saw how quickly that gained views. It gained like 2,000 or 3,000 views in 48 hours. And I was like, okay, maybe I could make something of this. And then I slowly, gradually built towards doing Let's Plays. And then obviously I did the first Let's Plays that I did were Crash and Spyro, with Spyro being the very first one. And that video is rough. That video is very, very rough. In fact, I would argue that that video is probably one of the worst I've ever put out. I mean, for God's sake, the microphone that I was using cuts out about less than 10 minutes. The microphone I was using cuts out less than 10 minutes into the freaking video. So I have to... I didn't like pause the video to go get another headset. I literally kept the video going, so there's like a 2-minute gap there. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I do now. I know what I'm doing now. But it's crazy because if you told little me sitting, playing, and completing Crash Bandicoot 2 that a couple of maybe 15 or so years later, that he would be a YouTuber who has 700 subscribers and rising to the point that they became a YouTube partner less than 6 months into their YouTube career and reached the 500 mark in less than 6 months, which is usually reserved for like the big YouTubers that have got that. I would have said, well, first of all, I would have said, watch the YouTube. But then I would have been like, no, you're kidding me. That's not possible. And I'm still sitting here and I'm still thinking to myself, why do you people watch me? I'm terrible. Even though I have years, literal years of experience, I'm terrible at games. Like, I'm currently doing a playthrough of Tomb Raider on my channel. I suck at it, despite the fact I played that game to death as a kid. Like, it's just... I'm terrible at most of these games. But I think you people watch me because either you have the same interest as me in these games, or because I have some form of personality that you like. I don't know. Let me know in the comments why you watch me, because I really want to know why people actually watch me. But yeah, it's crazy to think, with my experiences with games, that I'm now able to do this on a public platform. and that I get positive feedback from people saying how much they enjoy my videos and things like this. It's crazy to think that I actually have a following. I don't know how this happened or why this happened, but thank you all for like the support and belief in me and being here for me. And I literally have in here. I literally have here. This is filled with future plans. I have a bucket list in here. Now, not everything in here is gaming related. Like, there's an embarrassing one in here. But if you live in the UK, one of the bucket list items in here is, when I become a massive successful YouTuber, to sign up to do the show Strictly Come Dancing. Because I've grown up watching that show. I've watched it since Series 1, or Season 1 if you're American. That's mentioned in here. There's other things in here like start up a foundation for disabled gamers, develop my own game, do voiceovers in games. Like, there's a lot of things in here you're not going to see in this. I'm not opening this up to show you guys. Just take my word for it. But there is literally in here, I'm not even kidding you, literally in here, I have a 15-year plan. A 15-year plan. What do I mean by a 15-year plan? I mean I have ambitions and goals written in here for the next 15 years that I want to achieve within the next 15 years. Now, obviously, reach 1 million subscribers is in here too. Obviously, start a foundation and charity up for disabled gamers. Charity donation live streams. Do some work for mental health. Just so many things. There's literally 15 years of plans in here, including some things which I'm not going to share, but there's certain ones in here that if and when they happen a long time from now, it's going to be surprising that I'm going to be achieving these things, because I have a plan to... Okay, I'll just mention it, I'll share. I have a plan in here. One of the things I have a plan in here is to, if I become rich doing YouTube, to start up my own gaming company and buy up dormant IPs and resurrect them. So IPs that are no longer active, like Kingsley and Jersey Devil, I believe it's called. Like, games that are no longer active. Buy them and then have new games in those franchises, because I love gaming. I also have a plan in here. I don't know how this was going to work. To start up a website or some kind of service that preserves every video game ever made. Yes, even the bad ones. Because I love video games so much that I believe video games should all be preserved. We don't need to just preserve the good, preserve the bad as well. Because the bad games serve as an example of what not to do. But yeah, there's also other things in here. Like, I have merchandise ideas in here. Sketches and things in here do that. And there's some secret lore in here to do with the Sora Nightheart character, which, once I have the means to make higher quality videos, will be used. I'm planning to have I'm planning in a few years' time to have storylines running through videos where I may or may not develop an ability in about 4 or 5 years' time to gain powers from games that I play, and the ability to wield items from video games that I play. But that's going to be when I have the money and the means to make more, like, big scope videos. Because I have plans for this, because this is what I want to do now. This is what I've always wanted to do. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm going to be doing in the future. This is my life now. You know, I have pretty much put aside all the not dancing classes, but like all the other things that I like, side things I would do. I've put, except for raising my son, obviously, because that's important. But all the other stuff I put on the side, because this is what I know now. This is what I am meant to do. This is what I am meant to do. This is my future. This is my son's future. He will. Oh yeah. When I'm gone, 30, 40 years from now, hopefully he will inherit the Sora Nightheart character. Because, well, his name is Sora, so, yeah. But, hopefully he'll inherit that and he'll do whatever he wants with it. But I want to set down, like, a lot of stuff. I want to use my love of gaming, and my history with gaming to good use. I want to use that to better the world. To be, you know, to make a positive influence on people. To be a positive force. Also, I want to eventually write a book. Now, obviously, hopefully, if I become big enough to write an autobiography, I already have the title of it planned. It's going to be video game related. But I also want to write a factual book at some point, when I have the means to, about the history of video games, going from the Atari, from like the earliest days, from like the one that's that Sonar game that was on the submarines and stuff, from like the earliest games up to whatever the current games are at that point in time, because I love video games so much. I've grown up with video games. They're a huge part of my life. They're a huge part of the person I am. I owe video games a lot. I would argue video games have kind of saved my life on a few occasions. But yeah, I have massive plans around video games. Like, I've already mentioned a lot of them. And I also mentioned some that aren't related to video games, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I managed to actually talk about this for less than an hour, actually. But yeah, I want to leave this final point here. Never let anybody tell you, if you love playing video games, never let anybody tell you you will never make anything of yourself playing video games. Because look at me. I'm just some regular guy who plays video games on YouTube. But I'm making something of myself with this. I'm achieving things. Yes, I'm only a small YouTuber now, but 5-10 years from now, who knows where I'll be? And you can achieve a lot too. So if anybody tells you you're wasting your time with video games, tell them to shut up. And that they're wrong. Because you can make something of yourself with video games. And never feel ashamed to tell people that you love video games. Because, and this is the fact here, video games are important. And video games are a way of life. And if you're a young gamer and you're watching this video, I highly recommend that you go and check out some video games of the past. I will do next week, after this video is up, I will do a follow-up video talking about some games from the past, but I recommend that people, younger gamers, check out. From like the Atari 2600 days, from the NES, SNES days, from the PS1 days, up to maybe the PS3 days. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video and kept up with it. But yeah, I went off on a tangent. I talked about my history of video games and my future plans. So yeah, hopefully this video turns out good. And that 100 favorite games of all time video, the 4-parter, that's gonna be for when I reach 1,000. And that is going to be a massive undertaking because my heir to Landon wants to go all out on that. He wants to not just include... he's hopefully planning to not just include me talking about the games, but he wants to hopefully include segments of me playing those games, as many games as possible, which means some of it's going to look archaic because the way I have to record a lot of these games, because spoiler alert, there's a lot of really old games on that list. But yeah, hopefully that video turns out good, and hopefully you like this one. And hopefully now you've watched this video, you know a little bit more about my history of games and my plans for the future. If you like what you saw, smack that like button, slap the notification button, smash the subscribe button. Sora, signing out. Love you guys. Peace.